We're back here on a Sunday night. The championship games just concluded. My predictions were right. Chiefs and Bucs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The first ever team to technically be a home team for the Super Bowl, although they're technically not the home team. But uh, it's pretty crazy. In 55 years, you'd think there'd already be a team to have done that. But we'll start Bills Chiefs. I mean, overall, it wasn't too close of a game. The Chiefs kind of ended up just running away at the start, and they never really looked back until maybe towards the end. There were definitely a couple questionable decisions by the Bills coaching staff, mainly in the red zone. There was a couple times where they ended up choosing field goals over touchdowns. My thought philosophy on that is if you're playing against Mahomes and Reed in the Chiefs offense, and the Chiefs offense is clicking, you're not going to beat them with field goals. Had this been a defensive game, yeah, sure. I mean, field goals, you'll take whatever you can get, but when you're going to have to put up 30 plus to beat Mahomes, like you just can't take field goals in some of those situations. It ended up probably costing them a chance to at least compete late in the game.
Yeah, I mean, one of those field goals that you're talking about is there was like 15 seconds left in the first half. Bills had it at the Chiefs 2-yard line. They went for the field goal to get points to make it 21-12, but I thought at that point you could have gone for it. I mean, if you don't get it, it's 21-9 going into half. Chiefs get the ball, so maybe that's kind of what they were thinking, that at least they can get some points, but it's still a two-possession game no matter what. Like it went to 21-12, and then the Chiefs got a field goal to start the half. So I think I mean, I guess they went with field goal. I would have went touchdown. Even in the moment, I was saying they should go for the touchdown because, again, if you don't get it, it's not like the Chiefs have a minute to go down the field and get a field goal. There was 10 seconds left, and they're at the 2-yard line, so nothing was going to happen. I think that's something, if you're going to beat the Chiefs, you have to take chances like that, and it may not always work out, but at least if you're going to, I would rather take the chances, and if it's not going to work out, then it doesn't work out, than not take the chance and never even have the opportunity to even score a touchdown. Because you're right. I mean, field goals aren't going to win the game, and we saw that. It seemed like every single time after like the first like two possessions that the Chiefs had, they scored a touchdown. I think it was like 5 out of their next 6 drives or something like that. They scored, I think it was 4 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and then they had like a quarterback kneel at the end of the half. So basically, they had 5 straight scoring drives, and it was 4 touchdowns. Like you had to score touchdowns to beat them, and it kind of came down to that they weren't scoring touchdowns, but also their defense did not play that good.
Yeah, their defense had a bad game. Hill
Yeah.
went off I mean, he had 9 receptions, 172 yards. He was making plays left and right, really. He was a game record today. Mahomes he had like a near perfect game. He went like 29 for 38, 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, you could even see there was a play where there were multiple plays where you could clearly see he was limping from that turf toe injury. Not to mention he had been concussed, a week ago, but that didn't seem to affect him at all. But the turf toe definitely seemed to affect him, at least running the ball. But I mean, again, it was not nearly enough to hinder Mahomes, at least in the passing game. He played one of the best games he's played all year, and the Chiefs basically played their first complete game of the year. I think we talked about it. Are the Chiefs going to be able to flip the switch? And at least for today against the Bills, they did. I mean, they probably played one of their best defensive games of the year, if not their best. They probably played one of their best offensive games of the year, if not their best, and the biggest game of the year so far, at least. And now they're going to have a chance to go to Tampa Bay and see if they can beat Brady. To me, this Chiefs team is a scary team. I'm scared of them as a Bucs fan, or a Brady fan at least. The whole game, or at least, and even before the game, I was kind of rooting for the Chiefs because I had picked them, but I knew that if the Chiefs were to win this game, I'd be super scared of them because it probably means that they played their first complete game of the whole year, and that Patrick Mahomes looks like MVP Patrick Mahomes and not whatever he was the last couple months of the regular season. The defense looks, again, I mean, it looks like a top 15 defense, and I don't know if it looks like that, the whole year for the most part. I mean, you got they seem like I'm not exactly sure what happened, but this Chiefs team looks just as dangerous as it did last postseason all of a sudden. And, I said that I thought that this would happen. I'm not exactly sure what triggers this type of, just instant, they just become so much better in a matter of a week. but it definitely happened. As far as injuries on the Chiefs, I mean, Eric Fisher looks like he's done for the year. I mean, and by the year, I mean
Yeah.
next 2 weeks. He's not going to be in the Super Bowl. Looks like he tore his Achilles. That is a huge injury. Not having your starting tackle is huge, especially when if you saw the Bucs game, Shaquille had 3 sacks and JPP had 2. That defensive line was going nuts. And they just got to play against the Packers line without Bakhtiari. Now they're going to be able to play against the Chiefs line without Eric Fisher. Granted, Eric Fisher's not nearly as good as Bakhtiari, but I mean, if you're the Chiefs, that's a big loss there. So we'll see what happens there. But
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying with the Chiefs and how they were playing, I mean, before this game, and I'm not going to count week 17 when they play the Chargers, they played 7 straight one possession games. And that's why I couldn't pick them in this game because they hadn't looked like the Chiefs from last year or even like the beginning of this year, kind of the first half. And I mean, you're right. They played their first complete game in what feels like 2, 3 months, honestly. So I didn't see them being able to do this. I thought the Bills hadn't played their complete game yet of the playoffs. Like I said this last time, the Colts game, they were really good offensively, but terrible defensively. Last week, they were great defensively, but terrible offensively. I thought they'd put a complete game together this game. I would say they failed on both sides of the ball. And then the Chiefs, they put together a complete game. Their defense was great. The way they used the blitz, I mean, it seemed like they were blitzing every single down, and somehow the Bills couldn't block the blitz. I just found that unbelievable that they knew that they were going to blitz and somehow had no like crossing routes, no underneath routes, just to get him out of the ball, like running back. The problem is Zach Moss was a big injury because he was kind of like that running back who could catch the ball out of the backfield, while Singletary, I don't know. I mean, he had that one play where he had it and he dropped it in the flat. It would have had an easy first down. It was early in the game, but it just showed like he's not the receiving back that Zach Moss was. And I just was watching the game and I was like, how are they not like, I know you can't pick up every single blitz, but like they were blitzing every single down and they had no answer to it. They're trying to go deep. He was running back. He was scrambling in the pocket. Allen was. I mean, his numbers. He was 28 for 48, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, I didn't think he played as bad as at least some people are saying. I mean, he was having pressure in his face the entire night. He really had nowhere to go. He had 88 yards rushing. The rest of the team had I think it's like 40 yards, and he had 88 on 7 carries. So I thought he actually played a really good game considering what was going on. His defense couldn't get stops, and his offensive line couldn't pick up the blitz, and his receivers really weren't making plays. He wasn't totally accurate at all times, but they weren't making plays like they were in the previous week. So I've seen some people say that he played a really bad game. I don't think he played that bad of a game. I think just if you're gonna give up 38 points to the Chiefs, you're gonna have to score in every single possession. And I mean, clearly they didn't, but I credit more the Chiefs defense than I fault the Bills offense, I would say. At least in the sense that they were doing something that the Bills just couldn't figure out for some reason. Like at least I would say I don't fault Josh Allen as much as I do the Bills offense. I guess that's kind of what I meant to say.
yeah, I mean, I don't think Josh Allen had a terrible game, but I mean, he just didn't do what he had to do to get it done. This Bills offense almost reminds me of just a better Steelers, like a much better Steelers offense in the way that they just like can't run the ball. I mean, they've never had like a great running game this whole year, really. It's kind of just been, and today it was, Josh Allen was their leading rusher. Zach Moss injury. I, yeah, I mean, Allen was getting pressured the whole night. One thing that I was worried about, Allen the whole year was just like recklessness and this lack of awareness at times. And the whole year he never really showed it. I'd always allude back to when it was the Texans wild card game and Allen just throws the ball behind his back and or behind, whatever it was. I don't know what that was. And tonight he seemed a little bit too reckless for my liking. Sometimes he was, and he kind of had to do it at times, but sometimes he just felt like he was trying to do a little bit too much out of the pocket. I'm not exactly sure what you think about that. So he just seemed a little bit reckless for me. He definitely didn't have his best game, but I mean, yeah, like it's tough when you just don't have time in the pocket and you can, I'm not sure that even if he played a perfect game or a near perfect game, I'm not even sure if it's enough to beat the Chiefs tonight.
Yeah, no, I think no matter what the Bills would have done, at least offensively, I don't think they would have beat them because defensively they just couldn't stop the Chiefs. So like even if they were like amazing offensively, like they were against like the Colts or like the last couple weeks of the regular season, it still would have been tough to beat the Chiefs. At least tonight. But I mean, like he was definitely reckless, but I think I feel like he was almost trying to do too much. I mean, every single drop back, he was had to move out of the pocket because there was pressure in his face in like 2 seconds. So I think he was trying to do too much. And they just didn't make the plays that they needed to make. It seemed like every time he rolled out of the pocket, no one was open. I don't know if that's, I mean, is that the receivers? Is that just the Chiefs defense? They just played, this is probably their best game of the season, at least in the last like 2, 3 months, I'd say. So I guess it's the Chiefs defense just being like in playoff mode like they were last year. Like, before last year's playoffs, they weren't that good of a defense, but then the playoffs came and they turned into be like one of the best defenses in the league, just how they were playing. And they've kind of been doing that so far. I mean, they kind of shut down the Browns last week, and then this week they basically shut down the Bills too. So I guess I have to credit the Chiefs defense in that sense. But I don't know. I feel like Allen, he definitely could have made more plays. He definitely, I mean, he had 4 sacks for 53 yards. I mean, those yards are on his fault because, if you get sacked 4 times, that's what's that, an average of like 15 yards per sack. I mean, it's not all on the offensive line. He was definitely moving backwards and trying to make plays, but I think he was just trying to do too much, and then he kind of got caught up in it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. I mean, as far as the Bills are concerned, though, I mean, as a Bills fan, you have to be content with the year they had. I mean, personally, I thought, they'd probably be a good team, but I definitely did not envision them going, 13-3 and, you know,
I mean, 15-4 for the season. So
yeah, I mean, they had an incredible year. Josh Allen played as good of a season as you could have expected from, as a Bills fan. You just retool a bit in the offseason and you'll be back. And, eventually this Chiefs team's going to lose a couple players and you'll be in it for
yeah,
the Super Bowl. I mean, as far as the Chiefs are concerned, though, they're going to be going to the Super Bowl again. And this is why it's so tough for me to bet against the Chiefs sometimes. We saw tonight, like if they play to their ceiling, and I'm not even sure if this was their ceiling, but if they play to their potential, this Chiefs offense is so loaded with obviously Hill, Kelsey, McCole Hardman, Edwards-Helaire if he's healthy as well, Mahomes when he's healthy as well. The Chiefs offensive line is solid. Obviously, not having Fisher is going to hurt, but this Chiefs offense is so good, and I mean, you could argue it's a top. I mean, if you wanted to say it's the best offense of all time, I mean, I don't know if I agree with it, but they're up there, and they're just an insane offense that tonight it felt like the Bills defense definitely didn't play well, but tonight it just felt like no matter what you're doing, Mahomes he's gonna either sit in the pocket and find somebody, or he's gonna make a play to get out of the pocket and find somebody. He was making plays left and right, insane, just getting out of the pocket and avoiding a sack and then finding somebody 10 yards downfield for a first. He made so many great plays, and I mean, it's just he's an incredible quarterback. And as a Brady fan who wants Brady to win in the Super Bowl, it's going to be tough to pick the Bucs in a couple weeks.
yeah. I mean, Kelsey was pretty unstoppable tonight. I mean, he was 13 catches for 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, the Bills, I think they gave up the most. It was either catches or yards to tight ends in the regular season, and you just knew that was going to bode well for the Chiefs because Kelsey's basically just a wide receiver. So to have him against them, I mean, he went off, and then you add Hill with 9 for 172. I mean, obviously if they're both going to go over 100 yards, you're most likely going to win the game, I'd assume, assuming your defense makes stops. And yeah, I mean, Mahomes was great. You kind of said it earlier. I mean, 29 for 38, 325 yards, 3 touchdowns. He didn't even really look bothered by the toe that he had last week, which I wasn't really sure. That was kind of like an underlined storyline or an underrated storyline, I should say, that people are more worried about the concussion, but not really about the toe, which you saw last week when he was playing. He was definitely hobbled by it. And, if he was going to be hobbled by that, then who knows? It kind of messes up with your mechanics and like your mobility and stuff. But he looked great. And then having another 2 weeks basically to the Super Bowl, he's probably going to be 100% healthy. So he'll be like fine going into that game, which is definitely scary for the Bucs. But kind of a preview for the Bucs. I mean, they played in the regular season, and then Hill had like 200 yards in the first quarter. I mean, that's most likely not going to happen again. But it's like, what do you do if you double him and then you leave Kelsey open, or do you try to do single coverage with Hill because he could just beat you over the top? I mean, it's almost impossible to cover Hill and then have to cover Kelsey too.
Well, you really can't afford to blitz against Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
especially you just, with your insanely good, insanely hot defensive front, and especially with Eric Fisher going to be out, you kind of just, I mean, you have to get pressure with four. If you don't get pressure with four, you're not going to beat Mahomes. He's just going to be able to, he's going to be able to pick apart the defense and just go down the field and score again and again and again. So you're going to have to get pressure with four. It's going to have to be another game where Shaq Barrett and JPP, maybe they combine for 3 sacks. Tonight they combined for 5. That's probably not going to happen again. But, the defensive line has to be pressuring Mahomes with 4. Got to make him, try to make plays, spontaneous plays, even though, he flourishes in that environment. He also flourishes when you make him comfortable in the pocket. So you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to probably have, 7 or 8 in coverage every play. And you're going to have to make sure that Hill doesn't, go for 50-yard plays here and there, just like he did in the Bucs game earlier this year. Obviously, you're going to have to limit Kelsey. He's going to be a red zone target, and he's going to be a target, all the time. You're going to have to shut those two down. Like, they can't combine for more than probably 200 yards. If they do, then, you're probably going to lose that game. So you got to hold Hill. You got to prevent big plays because, the Chiefs fell down, 9-0 early this game. And you see how quickly they can just come back. And, in the blink of an eye, it was 21-9. If you're the Bucs and you get to a 9-0 start, you have to make sure that doesn't happen. You have to try to, put this Chiefs team down early, and not relinquish that lead, obviously. So we'll see what the Bucs defense does. Todd Bowles, especially early against the Packers, early back in week 6, he was running a lot of blitzes. In this Bucs game, he was getting a lot of pressure, but you're probably not going to be able to blitz too much in this game. You can throw a couple blitzes here and there, but you can't be blitzing the whole game, or else that offense just has too many weapons. Somebody's going to break open, so it's just not a reality.
Yeah, you said it. I don't really want to look too much into the Super Bowl like right now, but they have to get pressure with 4 because they really can't afford to bring a safety down or like a corner come in off a blitz because they need as many DBs as they can when they play them. So if they can get pressure with 4 in the Super Bowl, they're definitely going to have a chance to stop them offensively, at least limit them a little bit. But they don't get pressure with 4, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, we can talk about the Bucs Packers game. So I guess we'll talk about the most controversial play there was well, I'll let you describe it.
Okay, so the game is 31-23 Bucs. There's let's see, there was 2 minutes left. It was right before the 2-minute warning. You have so your first and goal at the Tampa Bay 8. So there's 2:22 when this happened. So so the first play, first and goal, Rodgers is an incomplete pass to Allen Lazard. Second and goal, incomplete pass to Devontae Adams. Third and goal, incomplete pass to Devontae Adams. So 3 incompletions, but you're still at the 8-yard line. You still have Devontae Adams. You still have Aaron Rodgers. And fourth and goal, you're down 8 points and you kick a field goal. So as soon as this happened, even before it happened, I was saying, I wasn't even thinking field goal at all when they got first and goal at the 8. I was thinking it's 4-down territory, even though it's still only, it's an 8-point game. And even though you still have the 2-minute warning and they had 3 timeouts at that time, like what's the point in kicking a field goal you still need a touchdown anyways. So what's the point in kicking a field goal? Because you don't even know if you're going to get the ball back because you still have the 2-minute warning, and 3 timeouts, but
Back, so
yeah,
yeah.
they didn't get the ball back. But no matter what, even if you don't get it on fourth and goal, your defense still has to make a stop anyways. And if you don't get it on fourth and goal, let's say they stop them and they don't get a first down. So let's say the Bucs got to like the 15-yard line, they punt it. You probably get it back at midfield, you're 40, somewhere in between then. So your field position's better anyways. And again, let's say they had to stop them, which they didn't, but you have one timeout because the 2-minute warning was still in play. So you have one timeout, ball. Let's say that you're 45 with Aaron Rodgers. You're still down 8. You need a touchdown, 2-point conversion. But I think that's a better situation than, let's say they got the stop with the way it happened. They would have had one timeout with, what was it, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it would have been, like 40 seconds, whatever it would have been. I don't know. I think the first situation is just a better than what they at least were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason you kick the field goal there is if you think for some reason you're just not going to get the 2 point, which I guess kind of makes sense. But again, I mean, I'm going for it there. I listened to Rogers' press conference after, and he admitted that. I mean, he thought that they were going to have 4 shots, and LaFleur let him call the third down play. It was a play that they ran earlier in the game, the incompletion to Devontae Adams. We can debate if Rogers should have ran that. I probably, it's debatable,
Yeah.
but had Rogers known, sorry, yeah, had Rogers known that it was going to be 4 downs, I mean, you probably run that. So you're like 4th and goal, like probably around the 4, maybe even better than the 4.
Yeah, if he doesn't get in, he's at least inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah, it was a questionable call. It came down to a lack of communication between LaFleur and Rogers. In that position, they got to be on the same page, especially if you're LaFleur and letting Rogers call that third down play. You got to say, hey, like, if you want to go for the field goal, like, fine, I don't agree with it, but at least let Rogers know, like, by the way, if we don't get this, like, and especially if you just throw an incomplete pass, like, we're kicking the field goal here. They got to be on the same page. If you're not on the same page there, it didn't work out. It was unfortunate. I think you clearly should have gone for it. Obviously, hindsight's 2020 on that one, but I get LaFleur said that the way the defense was playing and stuff. You have to have confidence in them. I can definitely see that the defense had been playing really well in the second half. I mean, you basically let up no points. So I see it from that perspective, but at the same time, you have the MVP of the league, 4th-and-goal from the 8-yard line. You got to take it. You got to take that chance.
Yeah, I think it was a similar situation to, I think in that situation, you said the communication wasn't on the same page between them, but if you have a all-time great quarterback like Rodgers, I think even let's say they weren't on the same page and then they went to the sideline to talk it over. I think Rodgers, now I don't know if he said this or not, or LaFleur just had his mindset no matter what Rodgers was going to say, but I think he has to say, we're going for it on 4th down. Like, we're going to run our play. Like, every team has a play inside the 10-yard line, 5-yard line, 2-point
Somebody
conversion.
reporter asked him that, and he was like, he kind of just dodged the question, like, because the reporter was like, you know, was there a possibility that you could have just convinced LaFleur to go for it? And Rogers was like, it's not my decision or whatever. And then,
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
but
I think if he wanted to run a play, I think they would have ran a play
yeah,
because we saw it earlier with it was a perfect example. It was when the Bucs scored right before halftime. I mean, they were going to punt the ball, and then they called timeout. Then Brady lobbied to run a play, and I wasn't even sure if they were actually still going to run a play. I was thinking like they may try to draw them off sides just because. I mean, it didn't seem like they really had. There was only 6 seconds left when they were going to do that, so it's like, are they even have time to like an out route to get more yards for a field goal? But then they went deep to Scotty Miller, which again, that was such a bad play by Kevin King. I mean, the one thing, like I thought they were going to go with an out route, but even still, why are you playing so shallow if there's a chance they could beat you over the top? That was just a terrible play. And I mean, that you could argue that almost cost them the game. It probably did, honestly, because they most likely weren't coming away with points at all. So you take 7 points away, they're at 24. The game's a lot different. And there was other mistakes that happened along the way for both teams that could have easily changed the game. But Brady, being the quarterback that he is, he basically just told Arians, we're going to go for it and you're going to trust me with it. And again, there was only 6 seconds left. It's not like the Packers really would have had a chance to score anything like that. So it wouldn't have been that much of a risk. But I think in that situation, Rodgers has to say, and again, maybe he did. I guess we'll never know. But I think he has to say, like, we're running this play. And if it doesn't work out, then it just doesn't work out. But no matter what, your defense still have to get a stop. So I don't know. I just think they should have went for it on 4th down.
yeah, I mean, definitely, I 100% agree. As far as that play to Scotty Miller, yeah, I mean that play and the fumble, I mean that basically cost him the game. You could argue, in the Saints game, you could have definitely argued, especially in the first half, the Saints played objectively just better than the
Yeah.
Buccaneers. If it weren't for the turnover disadvantage, the Saints probably, or at least in that game, and probably end up winning. Obviously, Breeze did throw 3 interceptions or whatever, so it's not like that didn't happen. But you can argue in this Packers game that the Packers probably played overall a better game if you take out the fumble and the Scotty Miller play, because that's 14 points down, and the Bucs offense didn't get it together in the second half really at all. If you take those 2 plays away, and obviously that's very easy to say, but if you just take those 2 plays away, I mean, this game's probably has a different outcome. The Packers are probably going to the Super Bowl. Obviously that didn't happen, but Yeah, I mean, it was I forget, was it Aaron Jones that fumbled that ball? It was Aaron Jones,
He got
right?
injured on that play.
Huh?
He got injured on that play.
Yeah, it was Aaron Jones, and he fumbled off that same hit. I would believe it was Whitehead both times.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, obviously a very costly fumble, and then Kevin King. I mean, what are you doing there? Uh,
On everything. I mean, the first touchdown to Evans, he got beat and then mistimed his jump, which easily could have batted that ball away, even picked it if he just timed his jump correctly.
I mean,
And
yeah, but
then that play, yeah, but he at least could
that's
have
on
batted that.
five Mike Evans. Like on this one, it's like it's just like it's
But
almost
even
like it's just
I know what you're saying. Like, I mean, of course, he obviously shouldn't have let that up. But even like just the entire game, he was just terrible the entire game, and that was only. I mean, that was just inexcusable what he did at the end of the half. But
yeah. I mean, it was crazy, but yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, it's rare for a team to go three straight possessions in the second half of a NFC Championship game and have three straight interceptions and still win the game. And I think they had the stat up. I think it was so the Bucs had three turnovers, being those three interceptions by Brady, and the Packers only scored 6 points, while the Packers had two turnovers and the Bucs scored 14 points. I mean, that's the difference in the game. Even though the Packers won the turnover battle, the Bucs capitalized on those opportunities, and it's if you get three straight interceptions, you have to at least score on if maybe not all three, but at least two of them, at least get like 10 points, like a touchdown and a field goal, at least something. Because if you're only going to get 6 points because they went for two and they missed it, which he should have caught that, it was right in his hands, which would have probably influenced that decision at the end. But yeah, I mean, to only get 6 points with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams off three turnovers in the second half of an NFC Championship game, I mean, that's pretty inexcusable too.
yeah, no, I agree. As far as the turnovers are concerned, that's only probably a little misleading because I would say probably at least one of those Brady interceptions was basically just a bad punt.
Yeah,
It
but
was a 3rd and 2 play. That was the play that he just hucked it up to Evans. I mean, obviously, that's a bad play, but it's a lot different than the Devin White recovered fumble where they have it at like the 10-yard line. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, if you win the turnover battle, I mean, you obviously, especially if you have three turnovers or you get three turnovers, you have to score more than 6 points. I mean, it's just inexcusable. But yeah, I mean, the two big turnovers by the Packers, much bigger than the Bucs turnovers. That's the reason why the Packers lost that game. You just can't make
and
a fumble, and you can't. That was a bad pick by Rodgers as well.
yeah, and I mean on the pick, I mean he definitely was holding him, but I mean the refs were letting them play, which I don't really have a problem with, especially when it's in the playoffs. If they're gonna call it fair on both sides, I don't think you can really argue anything. Now, of course, Packer fans are gonna say that they were favoring towards the Bucs because of that no call, and then the call at the end on the last play of the game where they called the holding. But I mean that was clearly a holding though, and maybe on the interception they just missed it. Who knows? Clearly they missed it, but I don't have a problem with them playing. I don't think that's ever a bad thing as long as they call it fair on both sides. So I don't think there's much to argue really.
I'm never going to have a problem with the refs letting things go.
Yeah.
Obviously, unless it's blatant, like that 2018 NFC Championship play where I forget which cornerback was it, Mikel Roby or whatever his name is. I'm gonna forget what his name is.
Yeah. Nikel Roby or something like that. Yeah.
Whatever. But as long as as long as you're calling that type of stuff, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. I like when footballs, when there's able to actually be some sort of contact in plays like that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I know Packers fans are definitely going to complain about that call. Even if I'm a ref there, I probably don't throw the flag on that. But again, at the same time, like it probably held. Was it Tyler Johnson? I think it was Johnson.
On
Uh,
the last play you talking about?
on the DPI play, was it Johnson? Was it
You
like
talking about the Rogers interception?
no, 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 no. I'm talking about the last play.
Oh,
Like
the last play? Yeah, Tyler Johnson.
that
Yeah,
was Tyler Johnson. Yeah, I mean that hold probably held him a step back, so it probably looked a lot less catchable than it really was. I mean, you can argue it was a pretty ticky tack call, but again, like I'm not going to fault the refs and say it was Brady paying off the refs or whatever. Obviously, that's kind of a joke, but I'm not. I thought it was a fine call. The Packers had many chances to win the game, so I don't know. If Rodgers plays better, you probably win that game as well. I mean, if he doesn't throw that pick, but
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, Rodgers really didn't play that bad.
No, he
I
did not have
mean,
he had a good game. I'm just saying if what I'm trying to say is, the refs did not throw the game for the Packers. The Packers had
yeah,
plenty
yeah.
of chances to win that game.
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't think either
I thought,
quarterback played bad at all. I mean, I know Brady had 3 picks, but
well, he
I
played good
still
in the first half. Brady did. I mean, the second half he didn't play. You can't say he played good in the second
he
half.
didn't play well in the second half, but I don't think it was, as bad as his second half stats might be. His second half stats are going to be horrible, but I don't think it was nearly as bad because, I mean, the play to Evans was basically just a bad punt. I mean, you either take the sack there and you punt it. Granted, and that punt's going to be probably 8 or 9 yards back from where the line of scrimmage was before on third down, or you just huck it up to Evans and you hope Evans makes you hope for a jump ball basically. Obviously, it was an interception, so it didn't necessarily work out. They had the ball at like the 30 something though, so it's like it wasn't the worst interception ever. But yeah, I mean, Brady definitely didn't have a great second half, but in the first half, I mean, Brady played very well in that. Obviously, I think Arians said that that call was all Brady. I'm not actually sure if it was or not. I would assume Arians probably wanted to go for it as well. But yeah, I mean, that's only something, a quarterback like a Brady or maybe like a Mahomes, like that's a play that the all-time greats are going to make. A Manning, a Brady. It was huge. I mean, and a play like that is where you just think, that's how this Bucs team went from 7-9 to what was it, 11-5, and now they're on the way to the Super Bowl. There's probably only a couple quarterbacks in the league who would have transformed this team from 7-9 to 11-5. And I'm not necessarily saying Brady's like the second or best quarterback in the league, but just from a leadership perspective, as well as he's obviously still great on the field. He might be the only quarterback that could have transformed this Bucs team from a 7-9 team to a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, there's only probably a few. I would say one of the biggest plays of the game, probably the most important play of the game, which is probably pretty underrated, was the 30-yard pass to Gronk, like that tight end screen that led to the field goal, which got them to 31. I mean, if that play doesn't happen, like this possession. So I mean, the three previous possessions were the interceptions, so they weren't doing anything offensively. And then to have that play that got them into Green Bay territory to get them that field goal, which then at that point made the game 31-23 with I think it was
4 minutes, something.
yeah 4 minutes left. So for that play to happen, that was a huge play because again, like you could say the interceptions, he was some of them were on third down and they were long interceptions really anyways, but they weren't doing anything at all on those three possessions. And just to have that play, that was a huge play. Another big time where Gronk came up. I think it was the only catch of the game, but it was probably the biggest play of the game because without that, they're probably not scoring on that possession. And then it's 28-23 with 4 minutes left. It's definitely a different game.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching that game, that play was huge. I mean, being able to go by 8 points with 4 minutes left, for a fact that unless you screw something up, at least you probably are going to overtime, worst case. So
Yeah.
that felt great to have that. And honestly, no, we didn't go to overtime, but yeah, I mean, that was a huge play. So yeah.
And I mean, Devontae Adams, he was kind of held in check. I mean, he did have a touchdown, but he had 9 catches for 67 yards.
He did not feel dominant in that game at all. I mean, I
Yeah, no.
talked about it and I basically said, you can't let Adams, we talked about the strategy or a strategy for holding Adams back, but we both agreed, you can't let Adams go for what Tyreek Hill did, which was like 100. You can't have 170 yards and a touchdown or whatever. He got held in check. He did not. There was not a point where you're like, wow, Adams is about to take this game over. His stat line, what is it, 67 yards a touchdown? That doesn't sound horrible, but he didn't really impact the game. I mean, Scantling probably impacted the game more than Adams did. Obviously, Adams was getting more defensive attention, but I'm just, as far as, watching the game just from a casual perspective, at least, like you would see that Scantling probably had more of an impact on the game than Adams did.
Yeah, and I mean, he had 4 or 5 chances in the red zone to get a touchdown, and he never converted. I mean, he had those. I think he had 3 straight passes to him in the red zone, like one of their first when they first had to settle for a field goal, and then the two at the end. Which I mean, the last one again, Rogers probably should have ran it, probably shouldn't have thrown it. That's definitely a tough catch, but still, he didn't have that big of an impact on the game. And this was without Antoine Winfield, which it wasn't really sure if he was going to play or not going into the game, and then he was out. I thought that was going to make a big difference because he's probably I mean that secondary is very young and they're not that good, but he was probably their best player and he's only a rookie. And for him to be out, I thought that was going to be a big loss for them. He's not like the best like safety, but he makes an impact when he's in there. And then they lost what was the other safety's name? The guy who forced the
Jordan
fumble.
Whitehead.
Yeah, Whitehead. They also lost him. So they were playing with two backup safeties for basically the second half of the game. I mean, both of them being out. So for them to stay true and stay strong throughout the entire game, and then especially the second half, I thought that was really impressive by their secondary.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this Bucs defense, and we definitely could have talked about it last week, but Devin White is just so good, and
Yeah, yeah.
he finds a way to just be in every play. He's always there. He just has a sense for the ball. He's
I mean,
gonna
he
be
had
he's
he
gonna
had
be an all.
15 tackles today.
He's absolutely insane. He's the best player on that defense, and it's probably not too close. I mean, without Devin White, you probably I don't know if you're in the Super Bowl, to be honest. So
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the difference in the first game of the playoffs. They didn't have Devin White in that game, and that was against, I mean, probably this worst or second worst team that made the playoffs throughout both conferences, and they struggled mightily, I would say, defensively. And then against the Saints and the Packers, they played two of their best games of the season defensively. And Devin White he had 10 tackles last week, 15 this week,
he had an
two
interception last
two
week.
fumble recoveries, and an interception. I mean, he played amazing these last 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
without him, you're right, they probably lose one of these games.
yeah. I mean, just if you, I'm sure if you watched every Packers offensive play, Devin White is almost in every single one of them. He finds a way to be near the ball all the time, which there's not necessarily a math to it, but he's always there and he's ready to make plays. He's always there to pick up a fumble. Clearly, like we've seen. Obviously, it did hurt having Winfield out, but the Bucs defense still just had an incredible game. Obviously, the defensive line, like you said, played insane. Winfield should be back for the Super Bowl. That's going to be, you're going to have Winfield. He might even be your second best defensive player, maybe third or fourth. But again, he's so good, and you need to have him. I don't think I haven't read too much on Whitehead, but he's not as good as Winfield or anything. But he's your starting safety as well. I would assume he's out. It looks like he might have broken his collarbone. I'm not too sure. It looked like he was like holding his arm like this, which I feel like when I see that, it usually means a broken collarbone. Uh,
Yeah.
I would assume he's probably out for the Super Bowl, but I mean, we'll see. If you can have him back too, we saw he was delivering some hard hits. He's a, he's gonna hit receivers. He's gonna make plays as well. So, you'd like to have both of them. You'd like to have both of them for the Super Bowl. But this Bucs defense, I mean, I have not been a fan of it for most of the regular season, but it's been the saving grace of this team. It hasn't even necessarily been the offense on the field, and this defense has played so well. They might not necessarily be the most shutdown defense ever, but they'll let some yards up, but they'll also make plays. It feels similar to kind of like what the Chiefs defense was a little what like last year. They might not have the most shutdown defense, but they make plays, and when they make plays, they're very impactful. Fumbles, interceptions. This defense is very young. You still have some veteran pieces on there. Like you have like a Sue. So it's not like it's a super inexperienced squad, but you've got a young secondary. But I mean, when you have a young team like this on the defense, they're just so full of energy, and they run and they hit. And it was a great defensive performance. So
Yeah, I looked him up, and he says that he'll know more about the injury in a couple of days, but he says he thinks he could play, which I mean, he may not be completely healthy, but it seems like he wants to play. But I guess we'll know more in the next week or two. But um, I guess one thing that I came out of this game with, and Rogers said it in his post game. Now, I mean, I don't know if he actually meant this or not, but he was asked about the future of the team, and he said he's not sure about even his future, which I mean, he's under contract, I think, for the next 3 years. I don't think he's not going to like ask for a trade or anything like that. So I don't see anything happening with that. But they do have a lot of questions on their team. I mean, Aaron Jones, he's probably not coming back. He's a free agent. They're not going to pay him that much money. So he's probably gone. I don't think it's definitely a big loss, but having AJ Dillon, I think is actually a pretty good running back. We'll see how he actually is in a starting role. But
I think
um,
fine as far. I mean, it's probably going to be a downgrade, but I mean, we saw
it'll be fine.
Aaron
But
Jones.
Aaron Jones is definitely a pretty good running back.
He's good, but yeah, he's not near on. Obviously, he's not on a CMC or Kamara level. He's not. He's again. I don't even like signing running backs in general, but he's definitely not a running back I'm going to sign. There will be a team, maybe even like a Seattle. We'll see what team, but there's going to be a team that overpays for him. I was going to tweet about it, but I was like, you know what? I'll save it for the podcast. But
Yeah, yeah. So he's probably not going to come back. I mean, Bakhtiari did tear his ACL, which happened in the playoffs or right before the playoffs, so he's probably out for all of next year. In maybe the last couple weeks he comes back, but that's also a question. I mean, Rodgers had his MVP season this year. He's going to win MVP, but he's going to be 38 next year, and I mean, we'll see how he holds up. He definitely looked great this year, but last year he also wasn't that good. Last couple years he wasn't great. So was this year like, is he going to kind of be like Brady, where he's just going to get not better maybe, but be like a lot more consistent and still be one of the top quarterbacks, or just kind of like an outlier year where maybe they just clicked, throughout the year on offense and maybe he starts declining again? I don't know. It's like definitely a question that you can ask.
I'm
But
not worried
their
about Rodgers.
team,
I mean, it's similar to the Brady. What happened to Brady was in 2013 or 14 or whatever, they drafted Garoppolo, and Brady over those previous 4 years from like 2009 to 2013, whatever, his PBR had gone down and down and down. And for some reason, drafting Garoppolo, when it's an ultra competitive person like Brady, it pushed him. And even though we traded Garoppolo, who was a second round pick later for a second round pick, that was one of the best draft picks Belichick has had in the history of him being a GM. I mean, it pushed Brady to just get so much better, and I think that draft pick is a very big reason why he was able to improve. Even when it looked like he was probably in the decline around 2012, 2013, and to me, it's probably going to see. I think it's probably going to be the same with Jordan Love, and we'll see what happens with Love. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure if he's good. It doesn't sound like he's going to be all that great, but you don't really know yet. But something lit a fire under Rodgers. It caused him to be much more motivated this year. He obviously looked better this year than he has the past couple years. Is he going to win MVP next year? I mean, probably not. Is he going to win MVP ever again? I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not worried about Rodgers. I think you probably, for the rest of Rodgers' contract, you'll probably keep him in Green Bay. He's going to be a top 5 quarterback, and he'll be the reason why your team's succeeding, and not he's not going to be the reason why your team's failing. I don't think.
yeah. So I guess, I mean, unless you have anything else to say about this game,
No, I mean,
I
I'm
think,
excited for the Super Bowl.
yeah, that'll be February 7th, and we'll talk about it maybe this week, but definitely next week before the game happens. But I guess I would say only really one other thing that's happened in the NFL besides these games, and that's that Matt Stafford is officially not coming back to the Lions. And we kind of suspected this. I think most people did. I think we said this last week that the Colts would be a perfect fit for him. Some people were saying the Niners possibly. I maybe. I mean, obviously they have to move on from Garoppolo, but I think the Colts are the perfect fit in that Rivers obviously retired. Brissett's coming off his contract. There's no more money with him. I mean, they're rather just going to release him or they're going to trade him. The Lions said so. Either way, I think the Colts have to get him because he makes your team, even if they go 11-5 next year like they did this year, or 10-6, whatever they were. They're a better team than they would have been this year if they had Matt Stafford. So I think whatever happens to that situation, I think the Colts should be the number one team getting him, and they should get him when whether he gets traded or just cut and they pick him up or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford was the number one pick, I want to say 12 years ago or something like that.
Yeah,
He's
2009.
he's never been in a situation that he can legitimately succeed. His best teams have basically been teams that are like first round exits. Obviously, he had Megatron for so long, but I mean, the teams around him were never super, super talented other than Megatron. It would be great to see him go to a team where, he doesn't have to carry the load at all. And he makes, unlike Rivers when Rivers joined the Colts at his period in time of his career, Stafford still has plenty left in the tank. Injury wise, we'll see. Sometimes he's injured, but I would assume he's not going to be injured. We'll see as far as that's concerned. But he makes plays. He makes a lot of plays, and unlike Rivers, if you're trailing or you know in any situation like that, I'll have faith in Stafford as a Colts fan to drive down and score a touchdown if he needed. But yeah, I mean the Colts, it would be a big addition for them. I think he would be good for the Niners as well. Now, is he how big of an upgrade is he off of Garoppolo? You've already had in your system for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. Um, I
I think,
mean, you
yeah,
could
3
definitely
years.
argue
Yeah.
he's a sizable upgrade, but to me, I think it's a better fit on the Colts than it is the Niners. Although it definitely would not be a bad fit on the Niners as well. It'll be interesting to see where he goes because I want to see him succeed. He's been one of the more talented quarterbacks over the years, arm talent especially. I mean, his arm is insane. So
Yeah, I read a stat and I knew this stat before, but just reading it again, he's never had a 1,000-yard rusher. And the Colts obviously have Jonathan Taylor. They have one of the best offensive lines, and they have a great defense. So it would be a perfect situation for him. And I I mean, like, I don't really believe in like players like they deserve to win a ring or anything like that. I think that's just stupid. Like, you know, definitely it sucks that he was in such a bad situation for his whole career, but I would definitely like to see him go to the Colts and at least have a chance at going to the Super Bowl. Do I think they would? No, but especially with the AFC, the talent that's there, but at least to win a playoff game or two, I think they definitely could do that if he's healthy. But I mean, I guess we'll see what they do.
out of all the quarterback options for the Colts, Stafford's probably the best right now. Assuming you're not
Yeah.
getting Wentz. Even if you were able to get Wentz, you could argue Stafford's a better option. He definitely had the better year last year. Not that he played outstanding or anything, but I mean, he definitely had a better year than Wentz. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. Wherever Stafford goes, though, I mean, as long as it's not like the Jets or something weird like that, I mean, it'll be a solid fit. Any team that's a quarterback away, really.
Well, I guess. Well, one more thing, I guess, but last thing. Well, speaking of the Jets, Deshaun Watson did say he prefers the Jets. I don't know if it's true or not, but he did say he prefers the Jets over the Dolphins if he were to get traded. And it does seem like that he actually is getting traded. They said no matter who the coach is, who they hire, he still wants out. So if he prefers the Jets, and again, we kind of talked about this, but they have the draft capital to trade for him. I don't know if they'd want Sam Darnold back. Probably not. They'd probably just want the number 2 pick and then take a quarterback, which means the Jets could also trade Darnold for even more draft picks if they wanted to. But it seems like he wants. He seems like he wants out. He definitely wants out, and it seems like if the Jets want him, then they can get him. So if I was the Jets, I'd get Deshaun Watson.
If I'm the Jets, I'm not exactly too sure. Again, it depends on. I haven't scouted too much into the quarterbacks in the draft, but if you love a Wilson or if you love a Lance or if you love a Fields, you definitely go down that route, in my opinion. Now, do they love any of those guys? I'm not too sure on that, but you want to have the rookie contract. This team's not a team that's a quarterback and I know Watson's only 23 or 24, but you know, you're going to be paying him, and ideally, I think you'd prefer to just go with a rookie quarterback. Again, that assumes that you at least like somebody out of the draft. You're not going to get Watson for just the number 2 pick, so you're going to have to give up more than that. Obviously, you have 2 picks this year and 2 picks next year. You'd like to keep most of them. You would like to. If the Jets trade for Watson, I'm sure obviously it would work out. But I don't want to see the Jets give up too much to the point where it's basically like Watson's back in the same situation as the Texans, where it's like you have Watson and you have nothing really around him. So if you're the Jets, you have to be conscious of that, because clearly Watson's not going to want to put up with a bunch of you know nothing around him. He wants to win, and he wants at least some solid rookies or solid people with potential around him, rather than what the Texans gave him.
Yeah, I guess so. I think he just wants out of Houston. I don't really think he cares about the situation, it seems like, because if he cared about the situation, then he'd probably rather go to the Dolphins. One, their team's better, they have better options. And there's also no state tax in Florida. Meanwhile, in New York, there is. So, that's just one part of the equation. But um, I don't know. I think it seems like he just wants out of Houston no matter what. I think even if the team, like, I guess if the team was good, he probably wouldn't want out. But like, I think he just hates the situation there. So
No, that's definitely fair. I'm just, I'm not sure how much better the situation is in New York. So if I was New York, I'd be conscious of that, because you don't want to trade 3 first-round picks for Watson, have him for a year or two, and then he's at the exact same point where he's like, this ownership is horrible. We're not going anywhere. The Bills, Dolphins, and who knows? Maybe the Patriots are even going to be better. So you want to be conscious that you're not trading up 3 or 4 first-round picks for Watson just to end up in last place again, and then again. And then after 2 years, you have a top 5 quarterback still in Watson who wants out, and you have to trade him. So we'll see. But if you can trade for Watson and still have some potential on that roster and not just gut it, then I would like the trade. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'd say if they could somewhat do that, then yeah. But I think you'd probably have to give up at least 3 first-round picks. But I guess we'll see.
I mean,
But
would you trade 3 first-round picks as the Jets for Watson, one of them being the number 2 overall pick, and probably end up throwing like a third and a fifth or something in there as well?
yeah, I probably would. I think he's. I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback. I'd say at least top 7.
He's top five, but he definitely still
He's
has.
a guy who could change. Like he's a guy who could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's not going to be a guy who's going to be on a Super Bowl winning team. He's going to be like the Super Bowl winning quarterback, like a Mahomes, a Brady. I know Rodgers only won one, but like a Rodgers, like he's like that. So
No.
I think if you can have a chance to get a guy like that, I think you just have to get him.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I'm not necessarily hesitant, but the only reason I even could think about not doing it is because you already have Darnold. You have all these first round picks. I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't necessarily think I'm that high on Darnold, but I still think Darnold can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and not a Nick Foles one, but like a Rodgers or a Brady or a Mahomes. And I'm not saying he's going to be the best quarterback in the league, but I think Darnold could be just as good as Josh Allen is right now.
I've been high on Darnold too. I just think it's been 3 years, and I know he's been in a terrible situation with like the coach, no talent around him. But I think I just don't see it happening. At least with the Jets. Maybe if he goes to another team. I mean, it seems like the if he were to get traded, it doesn't seem like the Steelers would because I mean they just signed Dwayne Haskins, which who knows what's going to happen there. Maybe they still would, but I don't know what team would take him on. Obviously, probably be in a backup role and like sit for a year and then take the starting role after that. So probably a team with an older quarterback, but I just don't see it happening in New York and maybe another team, but I just don't see it happening with the Jets.
No, that's fair. I mean, Darnold could definitely use a fresh start somewhere else. I mean,
Yeah,
the franchise has done him no help. I would say the Patriots would be a team that would contend for Darnold, but I mean, the Jets
they
probably don't
wouldn't trade with
want
them.
Darnold in the division. That's just stupid.
Yeah,
Don't you
yeah,
wouldn't do that. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Uh,
yeah.
we'll be back Thursday probably.
Um, Thursday or Friday, I'd say. I'm coming back on Thursday, so I'll also be at school on Thursday.
All right. Yeah. Anyways, though, I mean, to wrap things up, Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl. It's gonna be one of those. I'm assuming it's gonna be one of those all time Super Bowl games. I mean, these rosters are both loaded, so we'll see. But it's gonna be this is one of the most exciting Super Bowls for
It'll
sure.
definitely be one of the most highest rated Super Bowls of all time.
It'll be a highly rated Super Bowl, and that's even crazy when you think about that. It's Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Like those are two small markets, especially
Yeah,
Tampa Bay. Like who cares about Tampa?
yeah,
Just the fact that Brady is there. I mean, he carries this brand by himself. So it's going to be an insane game. I can't even believe Brady. When the Bucs, when we knew the Bucs were going to win, I was still like, I cannot believe that Brady is going back to another Super Bowl as a Buck. It's just
yeah.
I can't. I still like. I just have this weird feeling where I just like can't wrap my mind around it.
Even though I picked the Packers to win, when the game kind of realized it was like, oh, like the Bucks actually can win this game, I was I was almost rooting for them only because it's like we're never gonna see the quarterback. I mean, maybe Mahomes, but like we're most likely never gonna see a quarterback reach 10 Super Bowls and what is he like 12 and or 13 and 3 or 13 or 12 and 2 in championship games or whatever he is, like some crazy record. Like we're most likely never going to see a quarterback do that. So it's pretty crazy watching someone do that, and he's 43 years old and still doing it. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as far he might not be the most talented quarterback ever. I mean, they're definitely more talented arms. But as far as leadership and this culture that he brings, it's just weird. I mean, it's unlike any athlete in any sport ever, really. I mean, you thought it was the Belichick Patriot way, but it seems like it's almost it's the Brady culture, the Brady way. It's insane at this point. I mean, somehow he's just gotten all 52 players on the roster to just believe in this thing and push for the Super Bowl. And I mean, you can listen to any of the press conferences throughout the whole entire year. I mean, everybody attributes it to Brady, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it's insane to see that all these players, some of them literally less than half of his age, are able to just rally around him. And yeah, it's going to be an awesome Super Bowl. So,
yeah.
but
So that's
I mean, we'll
what
be
do you
back.
say?
We'll be back Thursday.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we'll be back this week, and then February 7th is Super Bowl. So that's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, that's it for this episode.
All right, we'll be back Thursday.